My grandma died recently. She'd been sick for a long time and was not a very nice person even before she got sick. She actually enabled some pretty crappy behavior towards my mom by my grandfather. Died before I was born. But when I was 10, nevertheless, we moved into her house to take care of her, and even after she needed advanced care and needed to be in a home, my mom was very involved in her care. My sister and I both since moved out. I'm 26, she's 22. But my mom still lives in that same house. It's paid off in a nice house in a nice location. But my grandma, because she's just a spiteful person, decided to will the house not to her caretaker daughter of almost 20 years, or even jointly to her 2 grandchildren, but to me, who she openly said was her favorite, because she thought I was prettier than my sister. Yikes. My mom wants me to turn the house over to her. I know legally it's my house, but under the circumstances, I do fully believe that my mom deserves that house and is entitled to it. The issue is not greed or me wanting to sell it out from under her. Rather, the issue is that my mom is not actually that good with money. I was actually really surprised to grow up and find out that she didn't have credit card debt. I think she's always just made $100 and spent $99.99 of it, saving only 1 cent for the future. So at this point, she has a modest savings, enough to cover repair or something, but not enough to actually fund her retirement. She does have a modest pension, and without a mortgage, I firmly believe that's enough. She also has a 35-year-old new boyfriend. My mom is 57, who barely works, and who she is now supporting as well. My mom wants me to deed the house to her, but I was dragging my feet until finally I said that I didn't trust her with it, and I didn't want him taking advantage. I'd be willing not to charge her rent and things, but not deed her the house. My mom was really upset and said it was condescending of me, and we both knew it was her house, really. True. Not the a-hole. Get a lawyer to draw up some kind of legal document for her to live there rent-free, but do not give her a house that she's going to end up giving to her loser boyfriend. Not the a-hole. In my opinion, you've been pretty thoughtful and caring towards your mother. You aren't being spiteful or mean, as you have no intention of taking the house from her. You have her best interest at heart, and I would worry about repairs, etc. if she acts that way with money. I suppose you could always get legal advice about a way to assure her she has a home, but guarantee she has no way to loan money against it. Personally, I think this is a kind thing to do for her. Not the a-hole. The house is legally yours, given by your spiteful grandmother. It doesn't matter that it should have gone to your mother. Sounds like you know your mother's financial situation enough that by not deeding the house over to her, she won't end up homeless in the future. This happened a few years ago, but it's weighed on me for a while, and I thought I would ask here. When my 30 female, now husband, 34 male, and I discussed getting married a few years ago, before the engagement, I told him I really only wanted 2 things. 1, for the proposal to just be us, as in no family, no friends, etc. I wanted it to be special for us, and I have really bad anxiety when the attention is solely on me. Even if it's my family, I can get panic attacks, and it's not a good experience. Plus, since I knew he was so nervous, I thought it might help take the pressure off. And 2, for us to shop for the ring together, so it's something we pick out together. I told him I didn't care if he didn't propose with a ring, or could even propose with a paper ring for all I cared. Well, when he proposed, he did neither of those things. He proposed in front of his parents, with whom he has a strained relationship, and made things incredibly stressful and awkward. And he purchased the ring. I don't look back on my engagement fondly. I had a massive panic attack, and it was an experience I wish to forget. But the ring he chose, oh boy, it is very, very much not my style. It's really ugly, and is not suitable for an engagement ring, nor is it designed to be worn for decades. It's actually a promise ring, and he proudly told me he spent under £50 on the ring. I don't care about the price, although it was a bit of a shocker because we both have mid-high paying careers. It looked like a child's ring you would get for a 14-year-old girl. He laughed about how the jewelry store attendant kept trying to show him different rings and asked him multiple times if he was sure that was the ring your fiancé-to-be would like. I spent months trying to find a wedding band that would go with the engagement ring he bought, but because it's made of different metals than wedding bands, nothing looked right. I even looked into getting a custom ring done, but it would cost over £900 for a custom band that would fit with it, and not a designed one, just a plain band because of the way the ring is shaped. Anyways, about 6 months after the proposal, I ended up finding a stunning ring at an estate auction out of the blue, and purchased it for a hell of a deal. This ring is exactly what I wanted, and I ended up purchasing the ring for £250. Its verified appraisal value is £1,800 for the main gemstone alone. And approached him about wearing the ring as my engagement ring. He was receptive, and told me if it made me happy then sure, and that, I don't care, if it makes you happy then I'm happy. But I don't wear the ring anymore because every time we get in a fight, he throws it in my face and is really mean about it. And he complains every time I wear it. I talk to my sisters about it, and they all think I'm not the a-hole, but I'm not sure. Did I cross a line? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You were very clear with your significant other what you wanted in a proposal, as well as a ring. He took neither of those things into consideration. I would look at your relationship as a whole. Does he usually disrespect your feelings or ignore them completely? If so, it might be time to leave. The ring you found at the estate sale sounds lovely, though. Not the a-hole. I think that says a lot about his level of respect for you. You asked for two simple things: some privacy and a ring you'd like and intend to wear for the rest of your life. He was extremely selfish, and then to be angry when you went and got another one when he couldn't even bother to listen to you. He's lucky he isn't marrying me, because I would have been 1, mean, and 2, called it off. Why is it okay to go against your wishes, but when you do something that was part of the initial agreement, he's entitled to feel butthurt? He should be glad you even said yes after what he did. Not the a-hole. The fact that he told you it's okay and then brings it up during fights is very troubling, though. It tells me that he really does not care, but knows you are insecure about it, and thus uses your own insecurities against you when he's mad at you, in an attempt to hurt your feelings and unbalance you so you will lose the fight. It's a gaslighting tactic, and it means that your fiancé is willing to sacrifice your mental well-being as long as it means he can win fights. That's rather disrespectful and problematic, and if I were you, I'd hold off on the wedding until this issue with your relationship can be fixed. That is not how normal, healthy couples fight, and doing this is not acceptable behavior on his part. So, a little backstory before I get started. Prior to this whole situation, me, 23 male, and my cousin, 30 male, had a falling out while staying with my aunt. We were both down on our luck for a while, and she offered a place to sleep. My cousin, we'll call him Lenny, was staying there for about a year and a half prior to me moving in. After I'd been living there for a month, Lenny caught a break and was finally able to move into his own place. This accomplishment went straight to his head, and he began to look down on me. He said I was irresponsible for staying with his mom, and that I'll never accomplish anything. We didn't speak for a while. Fast forward 3 months, I got into a beautiful apartment with my girlfriend and best friend. I'm doing well money-wise, and am very comfortable. Lenny, on the other hand, isn't doing as well as he'd thought. He lost his car, was barely making rent, and was just drowning, to put it short. By this time, I had a good amount of money saved up to put towards a new car, so me, wanting to reconcile with my cousin, offered to sell him the car for $1,000 under value, $800, after he'd explained how desperate his situation was. I told him he could pay me a few $100s at a time if necessary. Fast forward again to present time. It's been 5 months and I've received $400 for my car after constantly badgering him for the money. Since the original agreement, I also paid 2 months of insurance on the car he was driving, so the total cost of the car was now $1,000. So I was still waiting for $600. Recently I was informed that he seized the motor because he forgot to put an oil cap back on and left the car for dead on a highway where it was towed and is now being sold at auction. He refuses to answer my calls or texts, so I've given up on him paying for the car. I told my parents that I would take him to court for the cost of the vehicle, but some of my family members think that would be cruel because it's so close to Christmas. He also has warrants, so long story short, if he fights the dispute or doesn't have the money for the car, he'll be locked up, most likely for Christmas. I don't want to get my cousin arrested on Christmas, but this was a deal made in August, and I'm currently not as well off as I was and need the money more than ever. I also feel that a 30-year-old man should understand the consequences of his actions and be held accountable. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Let this be a lesson to you. Don't lend any money if you can't afford to lose it. Not the a-hole. As you've rightfully said, a 30-year-old man should take responsibility for his actions, Christmas or not Christmas, and he hasn't paid you back for months. It's ultimately up to you to decide what to do, but morally speaking, you would be more than justified. Not the a-hole. You want the money for your car. Fair enough. He's an a-hole for trying to get out of it. But I don't know if it will hold in court unless you sign something saying he agreed to terms of him buying the car. He could always say you said I only owe $400, and then it's your word against his. Edit. The reason I decided to file so close to Christmas was because he just told me the car was totaled and impounded on the 1st of the month, not because I hate Christmas. I don't have issues handling money. I handle money very well. When I was staying with my aunt, I had a job and made good pay. I was actively looking for an apartment at the time. I moved to a new state and was trying to get on my feet. I've managed on my own pretty well since I was 17. I'm only strapped a little for cash right now because I was let go from that job abruptly, but since got another job, and I'm getting things back on track. Since my car was impounded, instead of retrieving it, Lenny purchased another vehicle which was the driving force behind me taking this to court. I feel like he never had any intention to pay for the car in full. To all of you nice people offering advice, I will learn from this. Despite the overwhelming amount of people in support of me taking him to court, one comment really resonated with me. So I've decided not to go to court. If he decides to pay me in the future, fine. If not, I'll leave this situation the bigger man. I don't want to drag my aunt that just offered to help me through the mud because of the immaturity of her son. Life will catch up with him eventually. Thank you for everyone's responses. Love this community. I, 27 female, am currently single. I purchased a nice big apartment in a quiet neighborhood a few years ago, and along with it, I also got 3 parking spaces, each for about $25K. This is a lot of money, but at the time, I figured parking was crap and it was about to get worse in terms of availability. That turned out to be true. I have 2 cars and my ex used to have 1, so we used all 3 spaces. Recently, we broke up and I started traveling a lot. I let my baby cousin use one of my cars, so I had 2 free parking spots. I offered them to my only neighbor, which I liked. She is engaged but has no children. I rented them both to her for $100, even though realistically, rent should be $700 to $800. I checked, prices are going crazy. One space rents for $300 to $400. The rest of our neighbors are not a favorite choice of mine because honestly, they suck. One of my parking spaces is kinda small, and I have a big BMW which I parked in that spot one night. The next day, they had parked in such a way that I was unable to move without crashing into someone. When I asked them to move their cars and promised to just switch around parking spots so issue doesn't repeat, I got the answer, "You're smart enough to leave your car there. You should be smart enough to get it out. Don't you have a million cars? Go drive something else." I got them towed and they screamed their butts off, so that was fun. Suffice to say, we are not friends with the 4 families involved in this fiasco, which is why my lovely neighbor Sky, that even defended me, got my parking spots. People noticed Sky's cars, and only a few days later they made a building association meeting, something I have not been invited to in a year, and sat me down and let me know that the parking situation is unfair. They said I have to put the parking spots up for the whole building and have a rent auction for who will pay the most. They said they feel I was being unfair as they had kids and Sky didn't. I felt bad and talked it over with Sky. She agreed her and her fiancé can manage with one of the bigger parking spaces, which barely fits 2 cars, the second blocking the first. Well, they weren't happy. Apparently, they all wanted this big parking space because it is in the shade, and they could put slides and other contractions for their kids to play in. I let them know this makes me uncomfortable, as I will be back at home at some points, and I do not want anyone to invest anything. They called me selfish and a W. I got upset and told one of the moms who was on my case about my lip fillers that kids are a choice, and that does not make her special. She kept saying no wonder you are single, no wonder you don't have kids. She called me a rich, spoiled brat. No one except Sky speaks to me anymore. Should I just give them the freaking parking spot they want? Am I the a-hole? Hell no. You shouldn't give them a chance to rent any of your spaces. They can't choose who you rent to. You own it. You get to decide. For all they know, you're not renting it. You just told your neighbors they could park there. Duck them. If they come at you with some BS, tell them to call your lawyer. I'd rather buy an old car and park it in my space permanently to give in to these jerks. I'd rather reclassify it as a burial plot and be buried in it than let them have that parking spot ever. They want to make a kid's playground and a car park space? Yeah, nothing dangerous about that plan at all. Good gosh, what ding-dongs. Do they expect to use the rooms in the apartment you paid for and don't currently use as well? You paid for them, and they're yours to use as you see fit, assuming there were no restrictions when you moved in. You want to camp in them? Do it. Give them for free to someone with good karma. Heck yes. Just tell them you're dating Sky. That will blow their socks off. Can't prove otherwise. Not the a-hole.